for security from these things. It is only when these are removed, when the big God himself is broken, then there is no root and no platform to remove this. If you chase addictions, if you chase and get rid of one hobby, you will find your heart leaning towards another hobby. If you get rid of one passion, you will find yourself passionate about another thing. If you fight one desire, you will find you are being followed by another desire. Why? Because what we are doing is we are just cutting at the branches of the tree. We're not looking at the root. The root itself is that nafs, that I want versus what Allah wants. And that is why both the Shia and the Sunni muhaddithun have quoted traditions from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Ali Muhammad. That he said, shirk, polytheism, associating other gods with God, creeps more silently in your hearts than a black ant in a dark, moonless night under a black rock. That is how silently shirk can walk in the heart of a man. It is not an easy thing. So if we bring this back to our subject of obstacles to knowing Allah, then we see how this attachment to the ego is connected to this. As long as we look to other things, to these other gods that feeds our ego, there will always be the ego. The ego and that nafs is the source of what I want. As long as there is I want, there will never be what Allah wants. And disobedience to Allah, sinning, also takes its root from the same thing. When I want an opinion on something, what do? I find who is the most knowledgeable in that matter, isn't it? If I want to purchase a home, and all of you are seated here, I will see who is the one who is an expert on homes, who is the real estate agent. I'll speak to him. I won't go and ask the doctor. But if I have a medical problem, then I'll look at the doctor. So in my religious affairs, first and foremost, who knows the most? Allah. So when I say I worship Allah, that means I surrender to the one who knows the most. Now after I have said I surrender to the one who knows the most, there is this one issue on which I have my own opinion. On this particular issue, I choose to respectfully disagree with God. Whether it is hijab, whether it is extreme, it is gambling, it is fasting in Ramadan, it is giving khums, whatever it is. When I do that, what am I implying? What am I saying? I am saying that on this matter, I know better than God. When Quran has spoken, when Hadith has spoken, when the experts of Hadith have told me what that Hadith matters, I still reserve an opinion. That means on this particular issue, I know more than what Allah knows. And therefore now that nafs that knows more than Allah knows, is now a God besides God. Because now it competes in its knowledge and its wisdom and its understanding of what is right and wrong with Allah, isn't it? There is Allah's opinion and there is my nafs's opinion. And that nafs knows more than Allah that this is allowed even though Allah says it's not. If I was convinced that Allah knows best, then there wouldn't be the issue of disobedience. So disobedience itself takes its root from this idea. And unless this obstacle is removed, then there will be that lack of surrender. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now I wish to develop the subject a little further, but let us take some examples from the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and then if time permits we will talk about that a little more. If you look at the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, of course right from the time he is born, it is very clear that he is not an ordinary creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The mere fact that he is born in the Kaaba, that itself tells you that this is a very special creation of Allah that has been sent to this earth. This Kaaba that Allah says in the Quran was the first house of worship ever established on the earth. Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nas lalladhi bi Bakkata mubaraka. This Kaaba. And not only that, but when his mother, Fatima bint Asad, is entering the Kaaba to give birth to Amir al-Mu'mineen, She does not go through the door. If she had gone through the door, then history would have said she did that so that her son would get prominence and eminence. But the walls of the Kaaba split open for her, as if they are rejoicing, as if they are smiling and welcoming him. Hence the words of the Urdu poet who says, "Amad pa Ali ki koi kya jasn manaye, ay khana-e Kaaba teri diwar se behtar." Who can celebrate the coming of Ali better than your walls, O house of Allah? So we see that he is a very special person. Now, if we try and extract from Imam Ali alayhi salam and say, what is the most salient feature of this Imam? What is the most outstanding quality in him? It is very difficult, obviously, to pinpoint it to one thing, because when you see how his oratory, his wisdom, his knowledge, his humility, his ibadat, his jihad, his total dedication to Islam, it would be very hard to say this is the one quality that he stands out for. But if you had to summarize all these into one, you will find that the most outstanding quality that comes to mind immediately is the fact that he had surrendered to Allah completely, that he had no self-will. As per the hadith we mentioned earlier, that said, if you wish to see a dead man walking on the earth, look at Ali bin Abi Talib. This is the quality of the Imam. And the Quran as well attests to this. The ayah of the Quran that we used as our basis from Surah At-Tawbah, where Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم. In that verse, Allah says He has purchased from the believer, but He does not mention who these believers are. But in Surah Al-Baqarah, He makes a specific reference to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam for the night of Hijrah, when the Prophet of Islam has to migrate to Medina, and Imam Ali sleeps on the bed of the Prophet to create a decoy so that the enemies do not know that the Prophet has left. Allah specifically praises him and says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِ نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ رَؤُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. And amongst men there is one who has sold his self to Allah for the pleasure of Allah. So it is very clear that this is an individual who has no self-will whatsoever. And from the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salam alayhi himself, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He himself is reported to have said, I never saw a thing except that I saw Allah before it and after it and with it. This is not an ordinary statement. This is a profound, profound Gnostic and mystical statement. He is saying that when I see the creation, I see them inundated and bathing in the light of Allah. I see Allah everywhere. In other words, he has realized that complete surrender where he sees himself completely connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything he sees or touches, he sees Allah with it, before it, after it, nothing but Allah. And so when you look at other ayats of Quran along these lines, you begin to see the fadail of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Take for example the ayah that says, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, my prayers and my sacrifices and my life and my death are all only for Allah. This is surrender, isn't it? This is absolute surrender to Allah, not having any self-will. You can understand my prayers are all for Allah. My sacrifices are all for Allah. My life is all for Allah. But Allah says, say my death is also for Allah. What does it mean my death is also for Allah? It is only Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam who can claim that and say that in all the jihads that took place in Islam, I am the only one who stood and did not flee and run from the battlefield. There were some who stood and fought and were martyred, but there is a difference between a man who fights and comes out alive and a man who fights and is martyred. For example, in the Battle of Uhud, it is reported the only two individuals about whom all historians report is Imam Ali alayhi salam and Abu Dujana. Abu Dujana was killed. When a man is killed, he has indeed achieved a lofty status in the eyes of Allah, and he has sacrificed his life for Islam. But his intentions can never be known for sure, because some fought and then fled. Some fled right away. Some did not even show up for the battle. Some fled and did not come back until after 3 days. But it is only Amir al-Mu'mineen who fought and stood and survived. So you know for 100% he was not going to flee. And that is why